This is us clearing up the cuttings from the willow trees down on by the River Thames, and that we cut off, grown into the field or removed. And we use this old, very old JCB, one of the first the type of made. They don't have a front bucket, they just have a weight on the front, and it's not. It was never designed to be used like this, but that's how we move things around, and it was very good for clearing snow on the roads, funnily enough, because we could put the A-freight down and just go backwards, and it would clear the road. And we have also small tractors bringing bits along from further along the river. And you can see it was frosty then. And it's a very versatile machine. And of course, after this, they produce them with 4 loaders, and you can do all sorts of things with it, and they're very, very good machines. Here we are, and we're ploughing. This is our most powerful tractor, a Farm All M, and no, I think it's an International. And it's got a 3-furrow plough on, and it can plough about 20 acres a day, because it's not very wide compared with what we can do now. Driving it is Harry Winterbourne, our ploughman, and that's his dog, who used to spend his time running up and down alongside his master on the tractor. And you can see that in those days we just started having cabs, and you had to get in from the back. There was no doors. You had to climb in from the back, which was rather difficult. Here we've got 2 more tractors. We had quite a lot of tractors, and some of them have got 3 furrows, and some of them have got 2-furrow tractors, ploughs. And you can see these ones have iron wheels. We take the rubber wheels off and put these iron spikes on, and they do quite a good job. But again, they don't have much output compared with today. It's extraordinary watching them. We had about 4 or 5 of these tractors ploughing to plough the whole farm, which consisted of 1,200 acres of a mixture of grass and corn and all various other things like potatoes and things. Now, this tractor is called a doe. It consists of 2 Fordson tractors, one with the front, both of them have their front wheels taken off, and they're then connected to each other. And it was a very good 4-wheel drive tractor, and that pulled a pretty big plough. It was 4 furrows, and it was wider, the furrows, and it could dig. It was a really good design, actually, and it was very capable of doing all sorts of things. We used it for years, and it was it did a lot of work, and it was very useful. Here we are showing you how at that stage we decided to try and buy nitrogen fertilizer in bulk, and we went to Wallingford and by the I think it was then we got it from near the railway line in those days, on the other side of Wallingford, and we got it in bulk. And this is how we did it. We made a ramp, and that's Francis Parslow who's doing this job, and he unslides the outlet, and it flows into this fertilizer spreader. Anything to stop using individual bags, and that's what we were trying to do, to make it easier and get more output. But it was pretty crude, actually. Oh, you can see my oldest daughter. She was about 3.5 then, or 3. And she was out there all the time. They had a wonderful upbringing. Now he's going out into the field to spread it. And actually the design of a lot of these things like the fertilizer spreader has not changed dramatically. It's the same sort of principle. You're throwing, by spinning discs, the fertilizer as evenly as you can over the field. You can see this was in the end of the winter, and you could see back then that there was snow on the ground. Now we're over at Burkett, where it's putting on the fertilizer, and that's our other farm. Now we're seeing it cultivated, and again all these tractors came out and did a little bit, compared with what we do today, and but it all had to be done. It was all in the spring, and it was usually about February time. We had a different climate then from now. And here we got a different arrays. This is a pair of discs, and they're big steel discs, and they disc the ground and break it up. You can see they're all working together. Awful lot of hard work in those days to try and get the seedbed as good as possible. Today we find it much easier. We have very much more powerful tractors and equipment, and it's just another age completely. The output is enormous. But in those days we had nearly 30 people working on 1,250 acres. But we did have 2 dairy herds and sheep, and we grew, so it wasn't all arable by any means. It was about half and half. There's another cultivator, and you can see the ground was pretty good. It was drying out, and it was pretty good, and this was difficult. Here we see the harrowing, yes. It's to level the field up and make it as level as possible before you start drilling. And it worked extremely well, actually. But again, the output was small. And in the far distance, that white thing, that's the Burkett farmhouse. We're over at the other farm, but it's all joined up. Now we're drilling. This is Jack Hayden's on the tractor, and he was a drillman. And the same principle as it is now, except nobody handles bags like that these days. But then everything was done the hard way. Everything had to be unloaded from the lorries that brought it in, or from the station in the case of fertilizer, and then stored, and then had to be taken out and taken to the where it was needed, and then handle it into these trailers, so into the drill. And it was all a lot of hard work in those days. And you can see the marker, the thing at the side, that's so he can come back, go down and come back. Here we are we had 2 dairy herds, one at Burkett and one at Drayton, of 60 cows in each. And you can see it's a mixture of Frisian, which and Shorthorn. It was my grandfather and father had a Shorthorn herds to start with, but then the Frisians came in and they produced a lot more milk, and basically things happened, so we're gradually changing over. Here they're coming into milking, being brought in at Drayton, and as you always, when there's stock about, there was a lot of mud. I'm afraid it all gets a bit dark when they go into the dairy. I didn't know anything about lighting in those days. I just took them, so you can hardly see, but it's a herringbone system that they're going into now. They're coming into it, and they're coming into and they have feed troughs, each one, and they're given some nuts, some cow cake, and now we see the milking starting. Well, first of all, the first thing you have to do in those days, and you still do, is clean the udder and dry it and get it clean of all the muck that it may have picked up. This is Albert Wall, who was the relief cowman in those days, and he worked for a long time on the farm. But it was a 2-day. Somebody had to milk them 7 days a week, twice a day. He's now putting the clusters on. I'm sorry it's so dark, but there you are. Oh yes, that's better. That's coming into the parlour, and it's going into the bulk tank. We'd got rid of all the churns fairly recently before that, and we're now putting it in the bulk tank, and that made a huge difference. And here they're coming out, and they go through a foot bath. And here the most important job was to keep it clean. And this is when the milk lorry had been, and Albert was cleaning up the tank very well, actually. And that was a once-a-day job, the milk tank. But all the equipment had to be cleaned twice a day after each milking. Now, we're silage time. This is a wilder flail mower, it's cutting the grass and putting it through a chute that sends it back down onto the ground, so it's still in rows, and it's so it has to wilt a bit, but not too much. We don't want it to make hay. We don't want to dry out too much. So you see that we put it down so it's already grouped. So in the past, before that shield thing at the back, we would have had to have a rake to rake it up. Now we're actually picking it up, and we're adding molasses as well. That's in the barrel, and we're putting it into the trailer. And of course, we made silage at both farms, and it was a very important part of the milking part. Here we're coming into Drayton, and it's going to be tipped. And then again, I'm afraid it gets a bit dark, but there you are. I didn't know anything about lighting, and of course the tractor with a buck rake on the back lifts it up and takes it up to the top of the clamp. And then he has to consolidate it, and then we eventually actually cover it up with a plastic sheet and put tires on it. Now we had a flock of sheep, of 200 ewes, and here you've seen him with he might have been a New Zealand or an Australian sheep shearer coming in, because though I did sheep shear the sheep in the past, I gave up because it's you need to do it professionally, and he did it much better than I did, though he's not as good as I would have thought when I looked at the film. But it's you have to do it once a year, and it's a 200 ewes is quite a lot. There, it's finished. That's right, that's the Godfrey Bowen way. But then we now see, yeah, things go slightly wrong somewhere down here. Yeah, this one's he's lost control, and it's he's got to get it back on his back. Anyhow, he managed to shear them pretty quickly, about 5-10 times faster than me. Here we are. My brother is on this combine, tiny little combine it looks like today, and it was a Massey Harris, and no cab, very dusty, but you know, much better than making sheaves and binders and all the rest of it. It was a step forward. Now we have how we deal with the straw. We used to just bale and collect them by hand and trailers and things, but this time we bought from the States, we bought a bale thrower. It's 2 belts going at high speed that actually chucks the bale into the back of these trailers, which we made specially for this. There's a dog that belongs to my father, I think. Anyhow, so that they're chucked into the trailer completely randomly, and you know, it did save quite a lot of labour, but you know, we've always been trying to find, because we used to do 50 or 60,000 bales a year, and that was a huge commitment. And nowadays, of course, it's totally revolutionised. But it was a step forward. And of course, they're now being put into the barn.